Students, in this video, we are going to understand how request and response parameters are handled in Express.js. Let's look at a live example using which we can understand what are the various ways using which we can handle the request and response parameters. So, in this example, we are looking at query parameters. Query parameters are a way to pass data to the server as part of the URL. So here we are trying to interact with the server, and the first way of interacting is through query parameters. So like I said, query parameters are a way to pass data to the server as part of the URL. They are typically used in GET requests to filter or search for specific data. Query parameters are added to the end of the URL. Okay, that is here. As you can see here in line number 17, if this is the URL, so the query parameter is added to the end. And our query parameter, it follows the question mark. Until search, it is map, it is URL map, but after the map, we have to specify question mark and then follows our query parameter. Each parameter is a key value pair and multiple parameters are separated by an ampersand. So if you think there are more than one parameter that you want to pass, then you may use ampersand. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to understand what is happening here. Here we are trying to import and initialize an Express application, and we are using a get method, and get / search is a map that we need to follow in the URL. Then we have created a key called query to which we are assigning the request. Okay, and the response is sent by saying a message you searched for respective query. Then we have initialized a port number that is 3000, and using the listen method we are going to run the server. Okay, and this is the URL. Okay, so let's go ahead and first start the server, and then let's head back to the browser to see the how the query parameters are handled. So the file name is server.js. So let's say node server.js. All right, I'm in a different folder. Let's move to the folder called my express. That's the reason we got module not found error. Now it's clear. Okay, so the server is running on port 3000. So let's head back to the browser and let's check what is happening there. So initially, let's just say localhost 3000 search. So we got you search for undefined because we did not give the parameter. Now let's give the parameter, and here the key is query. So the parameters are always in a key value pair. So let's give a value, let's say Google. So we got a response which says you search for Google. Okay, though I spelled it wrong, Let's give a different value here. Let's search for express. So now you've searched for express. So this is the query parameter that is given in the URL. Okay. Now let's look at another way of handling a request, that is route parameters. Okay. Let's look at how route parameters work. Here, this is the route parameter example. Let's stop the server. Okay, because we may have to run it again for route parameters. Since the port number is same for all the three, I may not use the same port number for all the requests and responses. So port number can be used only by a specific request. Now, what are route parameters? Route parameters are a way to capture values specified at certain positions in the URL. Okay, so here in the URL we will have certain values. In order to capture those values which are already there in the URL, we use route parameters. So they are typically used to identify a specific resource such as a user ID, it could be a username, etc. Route parameters are defined in the route path using colon. Okay, followed by the parameter name. So here in this case 123, in this particular URL 123 is the value for the route parameter. Okay, here we are trying to look for an ID. Got it? We are trying to look for an ID. See, like I said, we use colon. So in the route path we have colon here followed by ID. So we are trying to identify an ID number in the URL path. So route parameters are defined in the route path, that is the route path, using a colon. So here we have defined it, followed by the parameter name. So the parameter name here is ID. All right. Now the rest is same. We have used a get method here because we are trying to retrieve an ID. So we have used get method here, and the rest is the same. We have used request.params.id to identify the parameter, the key, which is the ID, and res.send. Now what send does is it sends us back a message that says the user ID so and so has been found. Okay, here the output, the expected output is just the user ID colon whatever number we give, and the listen method is the same. We are using the port number 3000. So let's go ahead and start the server. The file name is server1.js. So we got a success message saying server is running on port number 3000. So let's head back to the browser. Okay, cannot get because we have not defined the path. So we have the path here in our file, which is localhost colon 3000 user colon user slash 123. And here rather than 123, let's give a different ID. Let's say 516. All right, there you go. We have the user ID 516. So in the path, it has been clearly mentioned user forward slash colon ID. So the Route parameter is been identified using the colon. So after the user we need to mention the whatever the number is displayed or entered here, that will be considered as an ID. Okay, it's a very basic example but very effective to understand how route parameters work. So this was the second way of understanding how request and response parameters are handled in Express.js. Let's try to give another number. Let's give a different. Let's try to give a string. Okay, so it is reading the strings as well. We have not specifically mentioned the type of the ID we are using here. Alright, so that was about the route parameters. Now next let's try to understand how body parameters are handled. Okay, we will try to pass a body as a parameter, a JSON body as a parameter. So let's look at the third way of handling the request and response, that is using body parameters. So body parameters or the JSON parameters, JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So JSON parameters are used to send structured data to the server. So here we are trying to send structured data to the server. Since we are sending some data, then what method do we have to use? We need to use post request. In the earlier two examples, we have used get request, but here sending some data, posting some data, we want to use post request. The data is sent in the body of the request in JSON format. JSON is commonly used for APIs because it's easy to read and write for both humans and machines. So JSON is considered to be very easy to understand because JSON is written in key value pairs. Okay, so the data which is sent in the body of the request is in JSON format, and JSON is commonly used for APIs because it is easy to read and write for both humans and the machines. And how does a JSON body look like? It looks like it is structured in a key and value pair. Okay, so in Express.js, you can access JSON parameters using request.body. Okay, here we have used request.body. Okay, now there is a small catch to it. Though we are using request.body, it is mandatory to use a middleware function here, guys. The middleware function that we are using is the use function followed by express.json function. So this is a must to in order to access the body parameters, that is the JSON parameters. And in order to run and execute a JSON parameter, we require a third party tool like Postman. Okay, we are going to use a third party tool called Postman. There are other options like curl and etc., but I find Postman to be easy. So let's first stop the server from running the earlier example, and let's run this. Node server2.js. And what is the mapping here? Localhost colon 3000 forward slash data. Okay, it is in the data key. Let's copy the URL, and our server is up and running in port number 3000. Now let's go to Postman. Okay, now in this Postman, first thing we need to change is the method that we are trying to use. We are using post, and next we need to paste, we need to specify the port number and the URL path. Then click on the body option. Here, what kind of body are we trying to do it? Are we trying to pass as parameter? Let's click on raw. By clicking raw, automatically the JSON is selected. JSON is selected, and here we are going to write the body. So what are the parameters that we are trying to pass here? We are trying to pass a name and age. Okay, we are trying to pass name and the age. Let's say age colon. Let's give some value. Let's say 32. Okay. Now let's click on send. So the data is received, name and age. Okay, let's try to add some more data here. uh, let's also say locality. Okay, make sure you separate each and every key value pair with a comma, colon. Okay, so I've added one more entity here, one more piece of data, and I was able to successfully post it. So this is how we send JSON parameters or the body parameters. So in Express.js, handling of request and response can be done in three ways. That is, first one is query parameters, the second one is route parameters, and the third one is JSON or body parameters. You would want to uh, practice the same in your lab. Your lab contains the same sort of example, so you may have to work on it, and it will be really fun for you to work on this particular concept. We will meet in the next video. Thank you so much.